Hello and welcome to episode 19 of the Belair podcast. Are you looking for ways to improve your performance in sport, business, or life? Or maybe you are open to learning proven strategies for overcoming failure and bouncing back to achieve success. Today's guest played professional golf in close to 40 countries and on every major tour. He did this after having a stroke at the age of 24, which left his right side temporarily paralyzed. He then launched his performance coaching practice for professional and Olympic athletes. He is a student and teacher of movement and meditation. He is the host of the Movement podcast, which features influencers and thought leaders from a diverse range of excellence. Welcome to the show, my friend, Andrew Parr.
Matt, it's a pleasure to be here.
What's up, brother? How are you? Oh, lost you instantly. One second. I'm sure it's going. Hey, buddy, you're on mute. Not sure what happened. And we are live back with Andrew Parr. What's up, man?
This is a great way to start it.
Dude, last episode I've had a couple times where it's cut out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just blank space and I don't know what to do. You can see my camera, so I just look like a dummy. And I have to figure out like a joke. And I was like, oh man, like I really need to have like a joke prepared so that if there's, technical difficulties, I can kind of, be ready. But I keep forgetting. So I'm going to have to definitely write that down after this one.
I could hear you when we did cut out. So if you want to keep talking, we can go off that.
Yeah. Well, so I guess first question would be just let the audience know a little bit about you because you have an interesting background, professional golfer, switching your direction. I didn't know about the stroke. That's super interesting. You and I met from getting groovy on a Lovolution boat tour, which was pretty righteous.
Oh, so fun.
Yeah, so we had some amazing people there, and there's meditation and Reiki and dancing and hugs and all kinds of great stuff. So that's where we met, and we were able to touch base. But I didn't know about the stroke. That's pretty intense, man. 24 is young for that to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, very unexpected to be 24, and really had no idea what was going on. I was visiting my girlfriend at the time in Toronto. Was getting off the elevator. The right side of my body felt like it was asleep and weightless. And I was like, what's going on here? I was kind of playing with it. I was swinging my leg. I'm like, wow, this feels so bizarre. And then within another minute, I couldn't move the right side of my body. I was up against the elevator door, just really trying to support myself. And I called my girlfriend, but I couldn't actually speak. So I called her, with my left hand, and she knew I was coming. So she came out. I was like on the ground, and I was in Toronto, went to St. Mike's Hospital, which was right around the corner, and was there for, 6 days or so while they're doing a bunch of tests and things like that. But I gradually got some in the right side of my body, and here I am now.
That's crazy, man. I can't imagine that. Was there some sort of reason? Like you were playing golf at the time, you were feeling okay? Were you in deep stress? Do you have any reason, why that might have happened?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we can always look at all different things. I think in a mechanical way, I have a PFO, so it means that there's a valve between the two atriums. And that valve closes when we take our first breath and we begin to circulate or oxygenate our own blood. So that valve was still a little open and a blood clot got through and went to my brain, and hence why I had the stroke. So most people in my demographic of age that do have stroke, that's sort of what's going on with them.
Crazy, man.
Yeah. Other than that, like I was so driven for perfection and very closed off emotionally, and I probably just couldn't take that any longer.
The professional golf life, right? Like that's kind of what golf is perfection, and you got to play 40 different countries. were you enjoying your time when you were playing? You know, what did you learn from what it takes to be a professional golfer? Because I know that's definitely one of the toughest disciplines to make it to that high a level, because the talent level is high, the amount of people that are able to play is high, and there's really no room for error. And if you do make an error, you better recover pretty quick. So what was that life and journey like to become a professional golfer?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it started at quite a young age. I started playing when I was 8. My father took me out, and he passed away when I was 12. And we had a really close bond, and that was something we really liked to do. I was more into hockey at the time. I was playing AAA hockey in Canada, and really on that sort of competitive sport freak path. But I didn't really love playing hockey anymore, and I wanted to honor my father by playing golf. So that was my intention. That's what fueled me. So there was this such me emotional trigger for everything that I was doing with golf. It was always about fulfilling me honoring him. Now, nothing could get in the way of that. Like, there was nothing more important in the world to me than that. In hindsight, I realized it pushed me to levels where I neglected a major part of my life. I was essentially trying to bring my family back together through this, and I actually didn't really see them for 12 years. So I was traveling. I saw, I would come home now and again, but the things that I was really desiring were always there, but I was, trying to create this through a different reality. So I wasn't really a phenom at any point in golf, but it was one of those things where I had the work ethic. I had a really great coach, and my parents were like, yeah, we'll support you. Do what you want to do if you want to play professionally. So I think I was like 16 or 17. I was like, I want to play professionally. And I woke up every day, and that's what my intention was in the world. So I found extreme clarity in that. And so things were easy for me to find the energy and to really not be distracted by anything else. And I think that's, there are other ways, I think, but most of the athletes I've come across have had a similar focus, almost obsessiveness, I would say, and sometimes insanity.
Would you kind of say, like, really simply, that's almost a formula for achieving what you want, is just having that single-minded focus? You're not gonna quit, and you just basically are just like, it sounds like you just made the decision, nothing was going to stop you, and you did whatever it takes to get there.
I don't know any other way. I haven't lived any other way, so I can't speak. I hope someone else has had a little bit of a different experience, but for me, it was that singularity of focus. And also with a lot of my friends that I have seen that have reached, really the highest levels in whatever they're doing. I would be curious to know what it's like on your end and with the people in your life, if that's something that you notice to be, common.
Yeah, well, for sure. And that's why I asked you. So with Zen Athlete in the book, there's, I have like the Zen performance model, and number one is dedication. And if you don't have dedication to your idea, to your goal, then you're going nowhere, because that's the main rock. That's the foundation of your house. That's you give me a kid with 100% dedication over talent any day. And like you said, right, you weren't the most talented, but there was nothing stopping you. This work ethic literally just trumps everything.
Most definitely. Yeah,
So,
I think, go ahead.
I was going to say, so I know golf is a big mental game, and that's kind of, when I'm teaching Zen Athlete and extreme sports athletes, like, and I had this conversation with a friend too, which was interesting, because I said, extreme sports athletes have more necessity. So if I'm doing a backflip over a huge jump and I mess up, I can put myself in a hospital. If you miss a golf shot, you're going to be physically fine, but you also have like the external pressure, hitting like a 3 or 4 foot putt. right, to win the championship. And, I think that maybe the necessity for body survival in extreme sports is more, you know what I mean? It's kind of like the self driving force. But if you're in the NBA or Olympics, right, and it's your time to shine, or you got to put in this 3-foot putt, and it's just got a little break, and you'll hit it all day, every day. But you're looking at it, you're like, yeah, this gotta go in. This has got to go in. And so you have like this different pressure where it's not as consistent. It kind of is. You got to force yourself to be in that moment continuously and to, be in it and make sure it's right. But then when the pressure comes in, it's like heavy. Because if I'm doing the backflip, it's like, for me, I'll break my body, but I don't know what's worse, you know what I mean? Having a whole bunch of people watching me, making sure I don't screw up the winning putt, or, or going off a jump and maybe even the hospital. So I think both are definitely, challenges. So how important was the mental game, and how did you overcome all those stresses? Because golf is just continuous stress, all the time.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'd rather not be in the hospital. So I think probably getting over the trauma of missing a 3-foot putt might be a little easier. Although I still go back and be like, if I just would have done this,
right,
years later. But yeah, as you said, it always comes down to what's happening in the moment. One thing that I learned at a very early age was different types of meditation. So really being with the sensations in my body and learning to be with them instead of neglecting them. Now, I had some training later on where whether it was my perspective or how I was intaking it, but I felt like I had to control my mind. So I couldn't actually think specific things, even if they were, negative thoughts or negative results and things like that. And that got me into a very neurotic state in a lot of ways. How I approach things a little bit later on is that these things are going to happen. We're going to have these sort of negative thoughts. We're going to have thoughts all the time. It's not about how good or bad those things are, but it's about when we are experiencing these things in a high pressure situation. First is asking or setting the intention, what do you want to happen? I feel like that's a really good question to be able to narrow the focus. And then it also takes the self, the ego out of it a little bit, because it's not what I think's best, but typically the answer comes when I just simply ask that question. What do I want to happen right now? And I'm saying this completely in terms of golf, but like I would see the shot happen. It may not even be what I thought would be the best shot, but I would see the shot. And then there's a point of that. Once you have that clarity, you actually need to sense it in your body, feel what you want to feel. So I'm sure it might be similar in snowboarding, like what a backflip feels like, or a backflip 360 or something like that. So you embody it, and then you actually need to let go. And so that's I think what hinders performance a little bit is when I certainly didn't, like, if I didn't have the ability to let go a little bit, or be with myself in that high pressure situation, then it was kind of difficult. But when I could let go and there's freedom, then you could, I was able to really do whatever I wanted with the ball, which is so fun.
That's amazing. So do you mean when you're letting go of the outcome, the attachment to the outcome?
Yeah. So
beautiful. That's amazing, man. That's probably the highest point of Zen Athlete. The reason why I wrote it is because athlete, you could be a business person or whatever, but you're using your sport like golf or hockey or football or skateboarding or whatever as just a tool to enjoy your journey and better yourself, to ascend your consciousness, to see what you're capable of, and just letting the result be. Because championship, that's not what makes you a rad and worthy and awesome human being. Oh, this Andrew guy, yeah, meet Andrew. Oh, he's just an amateur golfer and he never played professionally. No, I don't want to talk to him. He's probably a douche. Like, we have these things that we think, like, for me, I'm so hard on myself for like skateboarding and snowboarding. I used to be, and I'm like, oh man, like I just want to land it. I don't care what people think. Like, I am actually not a very talented snowboarder, to be honest. Like, I learn things really quickly. I'm really good at a lot of things. But
Mm-hmm.
because I want to do so many things, I don't focus. And I know if I chose one, I would crush it because I understand all the elements. But yeah, I don't care. You know what I mean? It's like I don't need to do a double cork, switch double cork, and all these things to. I think it'll be fun. And if you give me a powder jump and Whistler on the right day, I'm gonna throw it down all day. And but just enjoy snowboarding, right? So it's using our sport as an expression to just enjoy life and to better ourselves. Because if you want to be better at golf, you take care of your body. You start to now understand all these things about what your mind's doing to you. Right? You're
Mm-hmm.
allowing your mind to go all these different places and cause anxiety, and then you can bring it back and like, oh, this is affecting my golf game because you're trying to perform at a higher level. And that's why it becomes more, it brings it to the forefront of your awareness, which I think is a really amazing piece of feedback. So would you say that with having that process of letting go and visualization and all that stuff is something that all other athletes could use and it's applicable to daily life?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think every athlete uses that. Certainly, the best performers, they get very clear on what they want to happen. They know exactly what they want to do, even in a sport where they're reacting. And there's definitely, I think the cool thing about athletes is they're very embodied. And what I mean by that is they know what's happening in their body all the time, to a certain extent. They really feel these things. But I do know a lot of business people that have that clarity, and because they have that clarity, they see the vision, and then really they don't do much to really control it other than doing what is necessary. So there's lots of things that like all of us athletes are not do that they don't really want to do. Like sometimes it's really fun playing in the final round, and sometimes like it's the worst experience ever. And you just want to be home in your bed, but at the same time, you do the work, and the work is always bringing myself back to that moment. That's my main practice in my life today is how aware can I be of what's happening inside myself as well as with the people I'm with and the community I'm surrounded by, things like that.
That's beautiful, man. And I think that golf would be a great teacher of that, of being present in the moment, because that's all there ever is. It's, golf is so zen, you're distracted.
It can be.
Yeah, it can be. I have one friend that's so good. If he gets mad, you know how people like throw golf club.
Awesome.
He drops the club and he grabs his bag and just hugs the bag. It's just so good to watch, man. It's just, and when this is a while ago, but somebody was just like, oh man, you're going to play whack fuck. And I was like, what? He's like, whack fuck. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's just like, whack fuck. It's so true. I did a couple summers of golf and really loved it. And I love golf. To me is similar to skateboarding in a lot of ways, because you are not perfecting that bugger. You know what I mean?
Chance.
It's so mother effing challenging. Requires you to be in the moment. It really tests your mental game. So, I commend you for, being able to do all those things, because it takes a level of awareness, and that's what you've now kind of grown into, is this level of awareness. And I wanted to touch on one of the things that you said about what you focus on. I just had Michael Lozzi on the show for the second time, and he's the author of The Law of Attraction. And you could do a whole, a lot of the athletes I coach, I do a whole Law of Attraction module, and they don't even know it is. I just wrote it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But so times we're attracting the things that we don't want because we're focused on the things that we don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an island green, right, and there's water all around, you're not focusing on how it can go in the water. Banking it, you're focused like, put this ball on the green, and you're single-minded, and that now eliminates all these other things, and then you go full Zen monk mode and let go. Just be one with the shot and make the shot.
Yeah, I think you hit that right on. I think we have both sides. You know, we have this side that sees the disaster waiting to happen, and then we also see the side that the possibility of hitting the shot or making this jump or doing this trick is there as well. So we can choose to focus on which one, but I definitely feel like bringing the awareness to a single point, to, like, for me it's the hole. You know, when I see the ball going into the hole, all those other things disappear.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful, and it's so simple. And I think that the challenge is that the weight of the negativity, because the way our mind is programmed, and Dr. Joe, and what I've read of his book, he's got some great books out there. So I'll kind of butcher the teaching
Yeah,
now.
let's hear it.
But it's basically, this part of your brain, the amygdala, maybe
Yeah.
somewhere responsible. Oh, do you know this? You can just tell me.
Well, no, I don't know Dr. J, but let's hear it.
Yeah, so the part of our brain that's responsible for survival, right? We're, in caveman days, when I go out and I see a lion, I've got to kick in and realize that this thing's going to whoop me if I don't, run away from it or find shelter or have a big stick or whatever. So our mind essentially is programmed to assess threats, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens is it goes in overdrive, and that's where we have all these memories, right? If you get hit by a red car when you're a kid and your whole life you're terrified of red cars, it set up this programming and you're automatically afraid, just in the same way as if you go out and see the lion. So we're unaware of this programming, so it has more weight because we're protecting ourselves, which makes it a little bit more of a challenge to have that single-minded focus. So if we're aware of that, it's our self-preservation kicking in. And like you said, it's such a money point. Like, it's so good to hear you say just surrender to any possibility, to knowing and really accepting, not only knowing, but accepting that it's ultimately outside of your control, because it is. Mm-hmm. And if you can act in that way, that's extremely powerful. And it's not a complicated concept. It's just remembering that simple concept. And I love the direction that you're going now, because we spoke, and you talk about professional golf a bit. Now you're coaching other athletes and Olympians, and you're installing these values on youth of today and telling them all of these lessons, and then also beyond. So tell us a little bit about where you're going, because I know that you're really passionate about your transition and taking all these skills into something more for you, something greater, something that expands beyond golf and what you were, because you used all that energy, that's a lot of energy and a lot of dedication, a lot of focus to kick ass and make that ball, go into the hole.
Yeah.
Now, kind of like with the monks, when I saw the monks break stone, they could break it with 2 fingers, but they use so much energy, all day, every day, training for years to break the stone. So I thought to myself, well, if I took that dedication to any idea, no matter how ridiculous, maybe it'd take 12 years, but holy smokes, it would happen. So I think that's where you are right now, transition. So tell us about where you're headed.
Yeah, I think that, it's interesting, because I had such a narrow and focused life for such a long time. I knew exactly what I wanted to do every single day. And what's interesting about traveling is, and especially when you end up getting good at something, you have the opportunity to travel and you don't have to pay for it really, but you just see that almost everyone else is living a completely different life than you. And so I grew up in a very narrow world where everyone supported me in this one vision. And then I went to school and it was sort of the same thing, and you're playing in your country. And then you just see that not only are people doing very different things, but like absolutely don't care at all about what you're doing. And there are different values within these societies, but I also saw that we were not me and the people in societies struggling to find cohesiveness, a sense of peace. But we all value the same things. If you asked anyone in the world what is the most important thing to them, most people would say their family and friends. They're the health of their family and friends and their community. I would probably, it'd be difficult to find someone who didn't genuinely care about that. Now we have everyone in the world that really, that's all they want. But if it's not your family or your friends, we don't really care about you sort of mentality. And then you blow that up and there's wars and things like that. So I just realized that we're like, there's not the need to fight if we can see these similarities within one another. And that got me, I just became more interested in how we're actually supporting we're supporting. And, you know, we're all looking for the, you know, as a society, we're looking for these quick fixes. We're looking for like the 30-day workout and the pill that will make us happy. And, you know, the one thing that's going to fix us because we're broken. And that's what society tells us. Our thoughts are wrong and we need to be this way and we need to be that way.
3 easy payments, $14.99.
Exactly. and I really feel like there's more simple ways of supporting one another. So my interest, and in transition, I know I'm sort of rambling a little bit, but in transition, I didn't have that singular point of focus. I was like, I have no idea what I'm gonna fucking do now. I have no idea. I was like, literally felt like I was a 2-year-old. And so I just started doing things that excited me. So I was going to a lot of dance classes. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of like this martial arts I've seen. So let me go try these martial arts. And I'm like, oh, this is sort of like this thing in gymnastics. And then you can go really deep into all these different forms of martial arts and forms of dance. And so I'm really fascinated with my relationship with my body, how I feel in my body, and how I communicate with the world. So if I'm different in my body, I communicate differently with people. So that became this sort of world into myself. And the dance community is really interesting because they're about expression. They're about reaching these depths of ourselves that, you know, as a kid, we're told that's, you know, we're not supposed to act this way. We're not supposed to, you know, you're sad. I don't want you to be sad. I want you to feel better. So I'll give you a treat or a toy or something like that, you know? So I was really interested in dance because they were actually wanting us to be with all of these things that were coming up. And so I would say my grand vision is to help, like on a macro level, is to help self-care. So how do we take care of ourselves? And then how do we extend that to our community in ways that support all of us? Not ways in, you know, someone's making a ton of money and everyone else is poor and everyone else is unhealthy. But how can we create communities that we can reach one another? And for me, that's about movement. You know, we talk about the mind a lot, but I feel like the mind and the body are they're integrated. So how do we use this whole vessel, not just the mind and not just the body, to love ultimately?
Wow, man, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that direction, and that's why when we met, we hugged it out pretty good because you know, I love where you're going. So I think it's such a beautiful vision, and it's going. You know, there's so many different things in there that you said that you know, you're talking about in a sentence or two that are big things, like transition. A lot of people are going through transition, and they don't know what the hell to do. You know, and it's really challenging, and you were able to do it in a graceful and positive way. And you said that you started to do things that you loved, and it starts to sort itself out. What would you recommend for somebody who is in transition? Because I know that there are a lot of people out there that are just like, you know, I know they know one thing, that they hate their current reality.
Yeah.
They would like out of it. So, you know, can you give them any tips or tools to?
Yeah, I think you touched on one of them right when you started speaking, but I think the what helped me in my transition was I just meditated a lot when I was in transition. I actually was living with someone, my partner, and it didn't feel like we were supporting one another in a way, and that we broke up. I just decided I didn't want to play golf anymore, so basically I left my homes, where I was living in San Francisco, to move somewhere else in San Francisco. Stopped playing golf, and so my entire home base for life, which was golf and my girlfriend at the time, were completely gone. And so I'm sitting here like, what the fuck am I going to do? I'm like miserable. I have no direction. And I really didn't have much motivation, other than like I was in so much discomfort. So I didn't really do anything other than meditate for about a month. When I say I didn't do anything, I was, doing movement or going to the beach, swimming. I was doing some work, but I really didn't have any idea what I was going to do. So I ended up picking up, there was a junior golfer at my club, worked with him for a little bit, and that allowed me to be able to live.
Talk about your form of meditation. I know a lot of people out there really hesitant. Just what was your style?
Yeah, I mean, I do many types of meditation, but the meditation I was doing in that was just a sitting meditation. So I was following the breath through the body. I was aware that the breath was cyclical. So I notice I still have times where I hold my breath. So the meditation I was doing was I was just feeling the inhale and exhale moving in a cyclical fashion. And then whenever when I was going through this breakup, it was really difficult emotionally. So I had this huge, what felt like this massive ball of, sadness in my chest. And I just went into it. I really wanted to feel all the edges of it and feel the intensity and feel how it changed and things like that. So I would start with the breath, and then I would really go into my body and feel what was coming up for me. And I would just be with that. Yeah, I don't know where we were other than that.
Yeah, you're going through your transition process. So you're and then your place blew up and you didn't have any.
Oh yeah. So I wasn't really doing any outreach. I wanted to see what was already in my life. And I think a big part of me had always outreach. Like I always had the vision, I would just go for it. And I actually took the opposite approach. I was like, I want to see what's already here. I think probably growing up, I would see some girl and be like, I'm going to go talk to that girl. And now I just, I basically sat back a little bit and was like, my friends would just come over at random times. Like we didn't even talk and they would just show up, or someone would ask me to go do something. I would go do that, but I never made any plans. And it was really interesting because of that, I just realized what is already here provided for me. And now I know, some people have great families and friends and some people don't, and that's challenging. But if I wasn't doing that, I was okay being with myself. That was sort of my practice at the time. And then I just fell in love with dancing and moving and being around people like that were interested in those things. So it was interesting. I was talking to my aunt. She's also wondering how she can move into a movement practice. So whether it's yoga or weightlifting and all these things. And I'm like, do something you love to do. If you love to go to yoga, because there's lots of people that love yoga, and then you'll have friends that love yoga. And when you don't want to do yoga, your friend will be like, hey, let's go to yoga class. Or if it's dance, or if it's martial arts, if it's parkour, whatever. But that's always my thing. Like, really do what you love and see and be open to what happens when you start doing those things. Because it's the best year of my life because of that. Scary as fuck, but the best.
Yeah, transition is usually a little bit terrifying for most. And I think that's why a lot of people can get stuck in a pattern for so long because they're familiar with the pattern. And I love, you've touched on this a couple times, and I'll kind of make a point about it, is that you're not, in these things that you're learning, you're not trying to steer away from the perceived negative or pain. You're actually trying to drive right into it. And when you drive right into it and see it for what it is, and then, and, you know, go into it, if you know, you can now make that a learning experience and grow from it and have it to be, you know, my cousin was telling me something today. We were having a conversation. I thought it was so good when I was like, yeah, you got to let go. And, you know, she was telling me about how she heard, she's like, you got to get through, because it's going to be a part of you. That's experience, that relationship that you had will always be a part of you. You can't just let it go and like it vanishes. You know, I was like, it was going to get through, and you are learning, you know, about yourself from that experience, and you're not avoiding it. And I think a lot of people do that, and that stuff will stay, and it manifests in the body. You know, if you have old trauma, like serious stuff, if, you know, if you've had crap happen to you, somebody that can help you get through that. You know, if you put the intention out there to, you know, get help. And one of the things you touched on as well is you had a great coach. You know, how powerful. If I wanted to go golf, I would hire you in a second. You know, if I were serious about it. So if you're serious about being a better athlete, if you're serious about, you know, I was on the podcast with Greg Jacobson, and he wrote a book, Happily Achieving, or was it not? Happily Achieving is his tagline. Shouldn't play in his book, but yeah, sorry, Greg.
Something like that.
I just showed him the other day. Sorry, buddy. I'll tell you. Greg Jacobson. I don't know, How to Be Happy or something, but it's such a brilliant book, and he is a badass business coach. But what he's done, you know, but he's put that aside to just show people how to have a little bit more happiness. You know, you're talking about yourself and your communities and how important that is. He's like, this is an issue. Like, I can put my direction here, and he has achieved such a great level of success. And, you know, his mentors, like, he's going to Jack Canfield's house and doing all these things, and I'm like, I want to go. You know, I always am looking, and people who have done it can show you how to do it, but then you got to go do the work, right? You can't make the golf shots for me. You can't meditate for me, but you can say, hey, dude, this is the practice that I did. You know, maybe you were not going to do a meditation style like this, but this is what I was going for. This is what I was trying to do, and you can make it your own. And then the other thing that I really loved and wanted to touch on was movement. And for me, I've always loved martial arts as long as I can remember, and it's always been about the development of mind, body, and spirit. And what's always been said is the easiest thing to master is the body first, because you can, you know, with weightlifting, no offense to weightlifters or people that have huge muscles, like, that's the basics, dude. Get your butt, go to the gym every day, and you will get big muscles. There is no science. And so they look and they have one part of mastery, but a lot of time, you know, mentally, you know, I'm sure there's lots of fully developed weightlifters, not saying that there isn't, but then you're missing, you know, the part in the movement in martial arts is mind now. So you're analyzing by making it very challenging and having to think about the golf swing, having to think about the kickflip, having to think about the backflip, having to think about a jab, and then somebody else punching you in the face or kicking you in the nuts or whatever. Now you're engaging the mind, and now it's this kind of chess battle. You know, you're using your intellect to move your body. So you're developing your body, you're involved in the mind mentally, and this allows you to go to the next level of spirit, where if you are trying to achieve at a really, really high level, it's almost necessity to learn how to clear your mind and go to this space of just total oneness. You know, when you're golfing, you've had your best game and you're just in it. And you realize that it's almost the golf or the movement moving through you. And then that's where you touch the spirit. And so I think that if you can bring that into people's lives and show them it a little bit, and in even a little way, that's where all the nonsense starts to drop off. It's like, oh, well, it's not about, you know, being the best golfer in the world. It's about loving what I do. And if I choose to be the best golfer in the world as an expression of me, but not being attached to my self-worth, then that's beautiful. I can do that. And now as I've reconsidered, this is something that I connect more to, I'm more passionate about, and what I want to teach. So that's my rant. I'm not sure.
Yeah, dude, it was awesome. It was awesome rant. Yeah, you touched on a couple things. We have come up with so many forms because I see this a lot in our society. First, it's like we need to look a certain way, and so that gets people in the gym, so to speak. And then it's like, oh, you're supposed to exercise. So you see people that are, in a middle point or a little bit decline in the health, like, oh, maybe I should exercise. So they go to the gym. And like, I'm supposed to lift weights and all these things. And I look at the most dynamic movers in the world, like the people that can do the craziest variations of everything. And they're typically dancers. So they're very aware of their own body, but dancers also dance with other people. And martial artists usually are sparring with other people. And they tend to be the most humbling of people because they know they need to be that way. If really, like the martial artists, they know there's someone that can kick their ass. And it hurts to get your ass kicked. And so the ones that I know are really good partners to have because they expose your weaknesses, and then they also teach you what your tendencies are. But getting aside from that, but we've created all these forms, but movement isn't a form. It's us. It's like what we were designed to do. But I can do snatches and squats and all these things. But can you dance? Can you swing from a tree? Can you rock climb? Like rock climbers also are amazing movers. But I guess I'm just looking at how can I expand my consciousness through movement, because I know there's all these connections that have to be made when I'm learning a new skill within the body and with the breath. So you touched on something like the martial artists, like the breath, the mind. Those are the things that really allow the body to move. And then you can access the spirit. I think about that with the breath a lot. When I allow myself to breathe, it's breathing through me. It's moving me. I'm curious to know what sort of martial arts you love, because I've done a little bit of keto, a little BJJ, and very little kung fu, but I know this kung fu dude in Toronto, and I really want to train with him. I'm curious to know what stuff you've done and if you have any leads for me.
Yeah, man. Well, I love it all. When I was a kid, I was in karate because that's what you did. But I started training, like my dad would train me, but I started training myself really young, and it was from Bruce Lee. Actually, hold on one second, man.
Hopefully, Bruce Lee, man. What a guy that guy was.
Yeah, I got it. I'm actually at my parents' house, but the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, so sick. Like he did philosophy in school. He's actually got a philosophy degree. A lot of people don't know that. And so his whole thing, he didn't even want to name it, but he named it formless martial arts. So Tao, Tao of Jeet Kune Do is basically formless martial arts. So, it's about your own expression. What might work for a big dude might not work for a small dude or whatever. And he was like, test them all and just see what you like. So for me, martial arts was kind of the way that you're seeing it. I was seeing practical martial arts. So when I went to Thailand, that's like, I like practical fighting. I kind of see it as like masculine and feminine. So my feminine is receiving, feminine is in touch, it's feeling, it's receiving. And I get that through meditation. I sit and I receive and I quiet the mind and I really connect. And I have a lot of masculine, man. It tastes like, that's probably the driving force. I have to like suppress that, like when I see people just do things that hurt my brain, a lot of that wants to like kind of check the situation. So I get that out through, hitting pads. So like for martial arts, I love kickboxing and boxing. I like boxing probably my best discipline. And like, I was a training partner for a guy in Thailand who's a professional fighter, Rob Lucida, and that was a ton of fun. And I kind of was able to see my level, but I didn't do a lot of kickboxing. So if we brought in kicks, I would just get my ass handed to me. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu I really love because of how deep it is and how, you can just, it's so deep, that's like really practical fighting. But for me, it's like, I really love the physical combat. And then when I trained Shaolin Kung Fu, they are basically doing ninja moves. They're little ninjas, sometimes not maybe the most practical form, because of, MMA has really shown that BJJ is super practical. Wrestling, they get a hold of you, is really, really practical. But they could do things that the heavyweight champion of the UFC could never do. And so they're using it as a catalyst, right? So I would just say whichever one seems more fun to you. I chose Shaolin Kung Fu. I've done Wing Chun, I've done Aikido. I've pretty much done all of them. Like when I would travel around, I would get a new gym just to see what they were like. And I always try to train with the master as well, so I could get the one-on-one time and stuff. So it's whatever is like the most fun. So for me, the most fun is hitting pads and me and some other guy trying to punch each other in the face. But you have the gloves on and you have the helmet on. And once you get to a certain level, you're not getting clocked every second. And you're not trying to kill each other. You kind of throwing them out there, right? So if you like movement, Shaolin Kung Fu, the movement in there is super hard. I was there for training every day for 5 weeks and 4 weeks. And it was so challenging, man. Like just getting the basic movements, and I was flexible and in shape in just a month. So people would spend 6 months in a year there. So any kind of martial arts is beautiful. And the other thing I was going to say that you kind of touched on is community. Having people that you go. I would rather do a martial arts class with a few buddies that I didn't enjoy as much as a martial art, with none of my buddies. So you build great community around people who are trying to better themselves. So that's a really important point, I think, as well.
Yeah. I think you mentioned also something with the feminine and the masculine. And one thing that I've seen, just observed in society, is like when we don't have a really positive outlet to direct this mass amount of energy, then you get in bar fights and yelling matches and all these sorts of things. But I think martial arts is such a great way to allow us to roar and be fully in our bodies and feel what it feels like to have all this energy and then also focus it. But I don't see a lot of outlets like that for men, and women, and I think women need to rage as well. But a lot of us are sitting down. We're not really connecting to our bodies, and we don't really have the space to be who we really are, say what we really want to say, and express that through movement. Now, I'm not saying those things don't exist, because they do, but the current way our structure is set up in society, these aren't things that we're promoting to help people allow these things to move through us.
Man, yeah, I totally agree. That's a great point. And one of the examples I have for myself is whenever I get the opportunity to scream at the top of my lungs, we're cavemen that are supposed to be civilized. You know what I mean? I can't remember who it was or how I heard it, but it's something like, we're bears. We're these primal creatures that are forced to live in these 4 by whatever units and to act a certain way and dress a certain way. And these rules and, laws, a whole thing. But like, you don't see the government trying to tax a duck or a crow for, living in the bush. Like I am a free person in the middle of something that I don't understand. And the law that I'm going to abide by is universal law. But we have all this stuff infringed on us because we're unaware of it. It's just like, do not harm anyone. Do not steal from someone, and just be kind. And, I am literally just this species, this thing, this entity with a soul going around. And I want it, like, with martial arts, for me, the masculine, like I've done stints of yoga, but I sometimes like, oh, why don't you really get into yoga? I was like, dude, I get my soft through meditation. And I'm sure there'll be a point where I really get into yoga and I like and respect it, but I can't skate an hour a day and then, work on some sort of martial arts or like, that like raw outlet and then do it. I don't have that kind of time, although I'm sure I would. But like for me, beating the shite out of a punching bag just to see like what am I capable of? How powerful am I? I want to release and see. I want to test. Always test, never limit. Always test. Just keep pushing and just nobody does that. So all of this stuff gets stored, and you're feeling like you're not releasing this energy, and you're not living up to what's possible. You don't know who you are and what you're capable of. So put yourself in situations like movement classes, like martial arts, where you're tested. And the best thing is when you have a great teacher, how much they can teach you and how much they can tell you that you have more. And I love when I teach martial arts and have a young kid, or I did a women's class when I was in Australia, and I also did a youth class. And like the women, after showing them just how to punch, and how hard they could see they could punch when they punch properly, because, your technique is everything. So at first they're playing on their ass, like no technique. And then they're like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah. And it's a couple weeks like, pop, 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 just kicking ass. And they're getting amazing, release. And they're like, holy smokes, like I'm more powerful than I thought. I'm like, yes, you are. And that's what a good coach and a good leader can bring out of you. Is like, no, we see the potential in you, and we help bring that out.
Yeah, I definitely think that's one of our greatest tools that humans have come up with is martial arts. There's a beautiful respect. Like I had a little bit of hesitation getting into it because you watch MMA and you see people like literally trying to kill each other, and I don't feel like that sort of you can definitely get injured doing some of these things, but at the same time, on any beginner level, the people that you spar with are there to help you, and they also need to learn how to be with someone who doesn't know what they're doing. So there's always this relationship happening in all of our lives. There's like a teacher and a student, and those roles can crisscross. But I wish I did that when I was a kid. Yeah. I wish I took some sort of martial arts. I wish I took gymnastics too, although I see the extreme side of gymnastics as well. But I wish I had some fundamentals of gymnastics growing up.
Totally, man. Gymnastics, like what they're doing in gymnastics is so funny because parkour is rad. Like, I'm all down with parkour. But you bring it, bring your top parkour guys into gymnastics and they can hold their own. But like with what they're doing is like gymnastics guys in the Olympics is like, yeah, that's it. No. Like, and you look at like, holy sweet Lord, like how is that even? But they did the last Olympics. I saw the guy. It was just a straight up triple front flip. Forget what it's called. You bounce. You got the pommel horse, maybe pommel horse, and then you launch off the pommel horse. Is that the thing?
Yeah, I don't know what they call that, but I know what you're talking. The vault, maybe? The vault? Is that what it is?
Yeah, the vault. So they did it in real time. They did it in slow motion, but it was way, way more impressive in real time. They had the camera just span it, and he is just booking it, cheek to cheek, sprinting, bounces, hits it, and does a triple front flip, and just sticks it. And it's like, oh my God. And it, like, to get the front flip around, just, yeah, man, gymnastics is just so amazing. Shoot, the gymnastics thing. I had a point from what you're saying. Oh yeah, the UFC. So that's a bummer about the UFC for me. I hate going to the bar to watch the UFC because you've got all these guys there and it's all male testosterone, and they market it in that way.
Yeah.
It's such a bummer. It's so sad because, if I had to choose, I'd almost hope that they didn't have it. They popularized martial arts, but Bruce Lee be rolling in his grave. How they're doing it. We don't have these real martial artists saying this is what it's about. We don't have, there is like, Randy Couture, and there's a lot of athletes in UFC and in MMA that show the respect, that are real martial artists, that are all those things. There's tons of fighters like that. Mm-hmm. But the way that they market it is this like gladiator thing that completely removes what martial arts is. It completely just bastardizes it, and it's kind of sad. And so, and even the way that the fighters are getting treated, it's like gladiator days. Like what they get paid is absurd. It's their choice, it's their choice to do that. But we're not supporting that, and we're not having people in the ring and saying, hey, like there's some great ambassadors for the sport doing what they could. But if we can reinstill that, and now you've got a lot of people going and doing MMA, and you need the right coaches, you need the right spirit. And that's another reason why, I think, the UFC is so I'm a big fan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because they maintain the respect. It's an actual real belt system. You're not earning that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just coming in for 2 weeks and getting a black belt. And you have a really great community, and it's very effective. I'm a really, compared to the average person, I'm a very good fighter. But if you give me I'm at best a white belt, maybe a little mark on it on jiu-jitsu, right? But you get like a proper blue belt, and like I stand no chance. Like I would just keep them away with a jab. Yeah, just keep them to get away. Like and I'm a really good wrestler too, so it was just like get away, get away, get away, get away, because it's just that good. So if we could bring in the love and what the heck martial arts was about, we could repopulate kung fu, repopulate proper MMA, mixed martial arts. Let's bring the love, and let's bring the intention back. Not just people drinking beer, see who can beat up somebody else, because that's the competition side. That they're testing to see how good they are. They're testing to see their own limits, and that's the way you do it. You do it against each other. So,
yeah, yeah, I'm really with you there in the MMA, and that's why I stayed away from it for so long. Just because it was like a bunch of guys wanting to kill each other. Doesn't seem that productive. Bunch of guys getting together because they want to make each other better, better body awareness, better tacticians, better whatever. Yeah, I'm in support of that.
Yeah.
You mentioned something with the BJJ that was really cool. Is that when you are sparring with someone who's like black, but you are I was in submission without even knowing it. Like it happened so fast and so smooth. Like I wasn't in pain until I was in submission. I was just like, didn't even know it happened.
Yeah, totally, man. And it's nice because you get humbled. I rolled with, when I was in Phuket top team in Thailand, they had a black belt. A lot of people were really, really good. And I could pick this one guy up. I was strong enough to pick him up over my shoulder, and then I didn't want to slam him, but I had to put him down, and then I thought he was going to armbar my right arm, so I yanked it, and he just kind of flipped over and put me in some sort of underneath reverse triangle. And I'm not a beginner. You know what I mean? Like I'm half decent compared to it depends on compared to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, and just I couldn't get out of it. I was like, this is amazing that I'm just getting schooled so hard, and you're smaller than me. I'm not a very big guy, so it's rare that I'm bigger than you. But that's how effective it is. It's amazing, and it's lots of fun. And then they show you exactly how they did it, and it's And the point is a brotherhood. They make you better. It's all about the development. So that's why I really love it. This isn't the cleanest segue, but I know we talked a little bit about your movement into self-care, and I think that's super important. A lot of people think self-care is selfish. And my buddy Lozier, he likes to say selfish equals self-care, because if the drowning scenario, if you can't swim, you can't save anyone else from drowning.
Yeah.
So you don't have abundance if you aren't full of energy, if you aren't full of love. How do you give that away? You need to be in that space because you have to have something to give. So do you have any tools that you've used if you were down in the dumps, or what you use with your athletes to treat themselves a little bit better?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned something earlier on, and it's just we typically tend to be very hard on ourselves, and I see that all the time, just like people talking shit about themselves, and I'm like, you wouldn't say that to your best friend. You wouldn't want that for your best friend, but it seems to be okay for us. I don't really get it. So, and I'm as guilty of that as anyone.
Oh, there's a quote from Wayne Dyer in one of his books. He's playing tennis with his friend, right? And his friend misses his shot and goes, "You idiot!" And Wayne is playing with him. He goes, "Hey, you don't talk to my friend like that." And his friend just looks at him, and he's just like, "Are you crazy? Like what? Don't talk to my friend like that." He's so good, man. So yeah, it's true. I 100% agree. I think that's super important. But continue. I had to bring up that story. I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things with it. One is just being able to listen to ourselves to know what we truly need. And so, there's basic fundamentals. I would say like a breathing practice of some sort. So that doesn't need to be a sitting breathing practice. It could be a moving breathing practice. But I feel like that's important for being able to listen, being able, like you said, being able to receive what can be in martial art or dance or yoga or sport, nutrition. And so what are we putting in our bodies? And then also rest. So am I getting enough sleep? Am I able to regulate quickly? Am I able to get into sympathetic very quickly? So I typically ask myself, and I ask myself this a lot, no matter what I'm doing, does this nourish me? So when I'm going to eat some food, does this nourish me? When I'm going to do a movement practice, does this nourish me? When I have conflicting events, I'll simply just ask myself, yeah, each event, and be like, does this nourish me? And so I begin to get a sense of what is best for myself. And it's easy to rationalize. Oh, I can do this time. It won't hurt me. Or, I don't need to work out today because, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll make it up. Or I can like stay out all night tonight. It's, these things. And the rational mind can be useful, but just not in this context. So I always go back to myself when asking myself these questions. And there's something interesting when we start taking care of ourselves. We become being an example for other people to do the same. So I don't go to a nutritionist who isn't living that life, to a master martial artist who isn't living that life, or any sort of teacher. And that's why one part of my practice is like, I need to train as much as the athletes are that I'm helping, because I need to know what they're going through constantly. And that helps me to help them more. So, there are a couple of those things. Is just knowing what those things are for you, beginning to listen, and like asking yourself that question.
That's awesome, man. That's a very, very good list. Again, nice and simple. And most people don't do that. And another thing that you touched on was the rational mind. Will go into instant gratification, right? That's why a lot of people who are overweight really struggle, because they're with the instant gratification. For me, it's productivity. If I'm not being as productive, it's because I want to kind of sit down and I'll do this to task later. So that's something that I'm challenged with and I'm getting better at. So the more that we can recognize it, just go ahead and make the choice that nourishes us, that supports us in taking us closer to our vision. Even if it's like a little thing, the little wins, and they'll start to add up, and then they'll become a habit. Because to change a habit, you kind of got, these the structure, or like a railway track that's going in a way, and it's so deeply cemented, whether it's a neural net in your mind, right? And all these neural synapses and neural connections that form this really deep rooted pattern in your mind, because you've got all these experiences. So it's harder to break. So you kind of just gotta derail it and derail it and derail it and come back and derail it. And soon you're going to make new tracks and be able to move forward a little bit easier. But it's that initial push that can really be challenging at the beginning. So that's a very, very great list.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle with these things a lot still. Mm-hmm. My aunt was like, oh, I'm having a really difficult time doing this. And I'm like, I have a difficult time getting up to move every single day of my life. Mm-hmm. And I'm probably the most active person she knows. So I think there's this misconception that it's easy for people. It's easy for people to make decisions that help them. And it's not. It's not easy for me to sit down and meditate every day. It's not. I struggle with it every single day. But I do the practice. And that's where I get the benefit, is just from doing the practice. Mm-hmm. Just from putting on my shoes and going outside. So yeah, I always, and that's the rational mind. Like, oh, these people don't struggle with these things. Like I see there's so many people that I admire, and I know what they have to go through is so difficult. They make it look easy because they've been doing it for so long. But I know it's not easy every day. And that's, I think, the people that are the masters are okay with that. They're okay with the work. They're okay with the struggle. They know it's a part of it, and that's okay. But they're still going to do the practice.
Yep, absolutely, man. That's such a key important thing. It's just showing up anyways. It's not easy for anyone. It wasn't easy for Bruce Lee. It wasn't easy for Michael Jordan. It wasn't easy for Tiger Woods. And they just showed up, and that's it. If you can show up and make the effort, that's where you're really going to get the results. Same with meditation, just sit down and give yourself 15, 20 minutes and just do it.
Yeah. A couple points. Can I just say something on that?
Of course. Yeah. Lay it on.
Where were we? The one thing with meditation, I feel like what has worked with introducing a practice is not just sitting down and doing 15, 20 minutes every day. Because if you take someone who hasn't really meditated before, you're like, okay, you're going to spend 20 minutes a day doing this. 20 minutes is fucking forever. Mm-hmm. So I like to start small, like even a minute a day, because really it comes down to our ability to be with ourselves for like a second. It's those 1 to 2 seconds where we can just stop. And that's when we get to make those decisions that help us. But so I like to start 1 to 3 minute first week, increase it by a minute the second week, increase it a minute by the third week. And in 4 months, you're meditating for 15 to 20 minutes with something that started out with being, do you have 1 minute for yourself a day? It's like 0.0%. But how do we cultivate these things? I think it's a little easier for people to get into it, to create a habit that lasts forever when we just start it super small.
That's so funny, man. I couldn't agree more. I have in the Zen Athlete book, there's a chapter on meditation. And I say it's like the foolproof guide for learning to meditate. And it's 1 minute the first day, 2 minutes the second day, 3 minutes the third day, up until 10 minutes.
Awesome.
Just do that, just make it super, super simple. Sit down. It's not about how. Your mind is just going to go race. Some days you might get some silence. Some days you might just think the whole time, but you observe your thoughts. You sit down, and in observing your thoughts, you observe yourself. And then you observe yourself, and then you start looking. It's like, oh, these are just thoughts. It's not even myself. It's just thoughts. And then bingo, you have an experience where you are not yourself, and you can start to connect to other things. Then you can understand who you really are more and start to be more clear-minded about your choices and all that kind of stuff. So meditation is a good thing, and it's a pretty common practice among people who've achieved a high level of success. I just am at the very end of Phil Jackson. No, is it Phil Jackson, the coach of
basketball coach?
Yeah, it's Phil.
Yeah,
right?
He's a Zen. Yeah, he's a Zen dude.
Yeah, the whole book is, getting the team, well, not the whole book, but a lot of it is getting the Bulls to meditate, getting Michael Jordan to meditate, getting the Lakers to meditate together, holding hands, creating synergy. And a lot of them had really great results with that. It forms a team bond. It's super important, as you would know with golf. So yeah, man.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. I mean, he's the winningest coach ever in basketball, by the way. So I think he's won 11 championships. I'm just imagining all these massive dudes sitting in the locker room holding hands together before the game,
Yeah, and it's so interesting to see, because when you see them, the seasons they had, the team they had, but to get the inner dynamics of all of these adults going through their different things, like they very well could have not won the championships. It came down to Game 7 a bunch of times. The injuries, the things that they didn't know on the other team. I was like, oh, this is, you see Michael Jordan and the Bulls and you just assume win, And as being a coach myself and coaching teams and coaching individuals, I know how challenging that can be if you've got a struggle or an injury or whatever. and you're like, oh my God, there's no way of winning. Same with a fight, right? I just found out that George St. Pierre, I think it was Carlos Condit or Nick Diaz. It was in an article, and he had perfect training camp and then ate, I don't know how they did this, but he ate bad watermelon juice or something. He got super sick because he left it out for too long. And he fought the whole fight just like he was puking before. Oh, yeah, it was Nick Diaz. He was puking before, and they came in to check his reps, and they had to like put on a game face because he was like puking in the toilet and was totally messed up. But went out and won the fight. And Nick Diaz is one of the best fighters in the entire world. Like, that guy never really loses a fight. Like in my way of like losing a fight, like GSP, I love GSP. He's one of my favorite because he embodies the sport. But he won in the game of the fight because he took him down. But GSP or Nick Diaz always chases you down. Like, he is just something else, man. Like he's never been knocked out. Like, he's crazy. So he had to fight
He's crazy.
best fighters in the world. Yeah, just puking. Like, I would be afraid to fight somebody who didn't know how to fight in the street if I was just puking and I know how to fight and I know that they don't. Like, oh God, like I gotta get myself out of this. So yeah, extremely impressive. So I want to ask you, do you have a top three books that you've read that have had the biggest impact, or that you'd recommend somebody who wants to perform in life or have more clarity, or just ones that have biggest impact or whatever?
Yeah, I think right when you said more clarity, the one thing that came to mind is when we were talking about the four fundamentals, breathing, moving, eating, resting. The things that have helped me is having a central point. So, and for God or for their country or for their community. So we may have to do something initially for someone else, and there's large connection there. But I think that helps us when we feel weak, because I think everyone has that battle. We can choose A or B. A nourishes us and B doesn't help us. But when we do something for someone else, where it's easier to do it for someone else, I have found, until you can really find your own clarity. So I think that's an important thing if someone's trying to start taking care of themselves in a way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The entire book, the Bhagavad Gita, just talks about service to others. And I think that's a life switch, and that's a consciousness perspective. For somebody who gets up every day for the service of humanity or for the service of their community or something that is not them, if you can find that, you are now on the path to ascension, enlightenment, self-fulfillment, or whatever you want to call it. And even when you're on that path, it's not clear, it's not certain, it's not easy, it's just different.
Mm-hmm.
You have more of a clarity that, like, this is definitely the way to go, and it might not be. It might not be, but for me and the people that I know, it is. It's like this fundamental thing. When you can just be selfless to other people, you then reap those benefits, and you do it in an honest way, not in that, I'm giving to charity so that people see that I give into charity, and like, no, it doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's like, what's in you that you really want to give, and you feel great doing that. The last person I coached and helped and been doing finally a little bit more than that, because I've kind of been shucking that away for a bit, but now more and more requesting. So I'm figuring out a way that honors my time and their time, because when I see someone and I help them, like, go from I don't know what the heck I want to living what they want, and they're just like, Matt, dude, like, thank you so much. And I'm like, I'm not even, just like, it's like, I see it's like 5 sets of 5 squats. If you want strong legs, it's a squats. But what happens is we got all this mental crap that we got to get through. Then we, like you said, find single focus, or if you don't know, here's the start of the way you go. Then you implement these other tools, and you have someone bouncing off who's done it, and then they start to get results, and it's just amazing to see, right? And it's just beautiful, right? Because you're helping someone, and nothing feels better than that. And it's your unique gift. Maybe you're an artist, maybe you're going to do whatever, but just find the thing that you want to give away, and you're going to find alignment in that.
Yeah, I just think that's amazing. That's why we're wired, or how we're wired. Like, it feels so good to give, and help. So I'm really happy that we've evolved that way. I guess getting back to your initial question of 3 books, it's interesting because books change your life at the right time,
Mm-hmm.
when you're open to something. Certainly a book I read, I think a lot of things shifted for me after I had a stroke, because I went from being like, golf is the only thing that ever matters to me, to like, I know I'm not just this. I know I'm just not a golfer. And I felt my resonance. So I started reading a lot of Eastern philosophy. One of my favorite books is Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. That guy, just such a cool, fun, short read that is so profound and so much in it that I think is a really good thing for anyone to read. But it's certainly a good starting place, because it's a fun story as well. So that one's really good. And plus, Hermann Hesse had to take 10 years off before finishing the book, because he hadn't developed enough to write the end of the book.
Wow.
So he started writing it, and then started hanging out with, I believe it's Carl Jung, because he's like, I can't finish the book. So they did a whole bunch of psychoanalysis type things and drugs and probably all those things. But, and then he could later on finish the book. So I think that's a super cool story anyway. Just because I think in our world, we need to get things out now, when the greatest creations have taken typically quite a long time to write. Another book that I recently read that's one of the most amazing books is Sapiens. I forget who wrote it, but it is. It's so cool, man. I don't know. It's not I don't know if it's self-help or can help you find clarity in anything other than a really amazing objective view of human history, which I think when you look at it at a grander scale, you can see how complex it is. You can see how diverse it is and how we've evolved. And it really has shown me some of the patterns that I've just been indoctrinated with. So it's not necessarily me. This is just the way my society has brought me up. And that's created a little bit of clarity for me. So I think that's a really cool read. I love David Hawkins' stuff. I don't know if you've read any of his stuff, but he has Eye for an Eye, or Power versus Force is a really cool book. So he talks about the levels of consciousness in there. And that's somewhat of a practical guide. He's very intellectual. His language can be difficult to understand. So it's not maybe the best book for everyone. And it's taken me a long time to be material. But I would say those are good. Tim Ferriss's book, I just read it for the first time in the last week, that 4-Hour Work Week, and I'm I practiced a fair bunch of these things just through friends or my own learnings over the years, but I always come back to simplicity. How can I simplify my life in a way that allows me to do what's important? But the 4-Hour Work Week there's some gems in there that help find clarity. There's a couple exercises, 80-20. So, or the 20-80, what 20% of things are giving me 80% of my desired or fulfillment, and then what 20% of things are giving me 80% of the pain and suffering that I have in my life. So those are a couple practical gems there.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Tim Ferriss is the king of practicality and process, so it's definitely valuable. When I read that one quite a while ago, and I could probably do with a reread of that one. I read the 4-Hour, bits of the 4-Hour Body, and that's where I was introduced to Pavel Tsulim, which, the hacks is crazy, man. I never went to the gym in my life because I couldn't skateboard or snowboard and go to the gym because I didn't know the workout. I would always do martial arts, I would hit the bag and do, dry land, push-ups, burpees all day long, right? But I'm not weights, really, no squats, no deadlifting, nothing. So I just started to do it, and it went from deadlifting 3, and not even 3, it was 2 plates. It was 225, 235, and I didn't know how to do a deadlift, so I had to get a trainer just to like I was smart enough to sort it out.
That's important. Get a trainer if you're going to start deadlifting,
Yeah,
please.
totally. Oh my God, so many people do it so wrong, and I go and I was like, should I say something? I was like, I'm just gonna say something like, hey, and I'll just be like, hey man, and even though I'm not, I know it could be. I'm just like, I'm a trainer. Like, do you want me to like kind of walk you through the deadlift? Like, you're gonna kill yourself. But yes, if you're doing deadlifts or kettlebell swings or anything with weight, learn how to do it. So I got a trainer, figured out deadlifts, and I still will get a trainer if they're near me or I have a friend. I'll be like, hey, analyze this. Like, how am I doing? Is it good? Am I doing it right, coach? But 225, 235 to 415 in 3.5 months at
Damn.
70 pounds.
Damn, dude,
And
that's
all
crazy.
the workout was 3 sets of 3 deadlift and 2 or 3 sets of 5 bench. And then I was doing about 100 kettlebell swings after because my body adapted and I was totally fine. And
Why not?
yeah, why not? And then I could skate though. Then I went skating, right? So that was it. It took me like 20 minutes, and then I just kept getting stronger. And I was like, what is going on? Like, this is wild, man. But it didn't affect my skateboarding. So yeah, Tim Ferriss, the 4-hour body is interesting hacks in there. So he's a tester of things. So man, it's been really great chatting with you. There's a lot in here. I just want to ask you if there's anything that you wanted to chat about or, something you want to discuss before we let everybody go, and something that you're working on, a topic, a question. Got anything that you were on a path that you wanted to go down a little bit more?
I mean, I feel like you and I could talk forever. One thing I wanted to, what you were saying is you don't go from 250 in a week, and I this is something I struggle with as well. I see people that are doing things that I would really like to do and be like, I can never do that. Because I can't do it in a month or a week. It might take me 6 to 10 years to be able to do it. So the main thing is just having the curiosity to follow your desires. So now it's like, what I've realized is I don't really know that much. I really don't. I know what works for me a little bit. I wish I knew what worked for me more, but I know what works for me a little bit. And I've found some things that have helped me so I don't have to really be sick. So I can like help other people. I still would like to help other people more than I help now, but I don't know that much. And that's why I'm so curious. Like, I want to know how all these things have come to be. But they come from practice. There's no easy road. And actually the hardest road, what I've found, where I experience the most resistance, is what I actually need to do. So the thing I don't want to do the most is usually the thing I need to do to help myself. And that could be some sort of training, that could be paying bills, that can be organizing finances or communicating efficiently with a client or effectively with a client. Like all these things that I feel like I don't want to do the most important things. So I'm going into the discomfort. And I think that's one thing I wasn't really taught. I had maybe some discomfort at an early age. But we shy away from it. It sucks to feel pain. But it sucks when you don't have a choice. When you get up in the morning and you don't have a choice, that's what sucks. The pain, when you can learn to be with that stuff, is maybe the most fuel you can possibly have. There's so much fuel there for you trying to tap into those things every day. I feel like I'm like a 2-year-old trying to, like, I've found this world. I'm like, wow, if I can really get into this, it will open me up a little bit. But I'm just like into training in discomfort. I'm into swimming in the Pacific Ocean that's like low 50s without a wetsuit. It sucks. and then the body adapts and the mind relaxes. I never want to do it. And sometimes I don't, but you know, I'm talking on a relative term. There's people out there doing really crazy things and testing their limits and training and discomfort, or maybe even not even, but just their life is super stressful and they're dealing with that. But I guess I'm talking mostly to the people that I know and see and communicate in the world, that, you know, how do we help each other just get over that, put on our shoes to walk outside? Or that's about it. I'm interested what your day looks like, though.
What my day looks like?
Yeah, like how do you spend your day? I think that's always fascinating.
You mean like a traditional day, like a?
Yeah, I'm sure you experience all sorts of types of days. Like I don't like to have the same day twice, so I try to mix it up as much as possible. But I'm just curious, like if you have like a work day and what that looks like, or if you have a play day and what that looks like.
Yeah, well, I travel so much, so it changes. Like, when I'm in my groove is getting up, meditating for an hour. Then after that, I'll go through, like, I do a breathing, and then I do a meditation. Then I'll eat, and then I'll usually go straight to skating, and I'll skate. And if I have the time, I've been really busy lately, but if I have the time, I'll actually work out, because the workout is just like so simple, but it yields such incredible results. It's like 20 minutes, you know, it's so absurd. Or I have a kettlebell at home and I'll do 10 sets of 10 swings randomly throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
That's a process that I have, that if you've got a pull-up bar and a kettlebell, 10 sets of 10 kettlebell swings as much as you can swing, and a pull-up bar just sporadically through the day. And then when I get back, that's when I'll do my work. I will do the tasks that I have. I'll do the meetings throughout the day. And then, you know, I'll connect with my girlfriend and ideally a friend. And then so much travel, you know, now with speaking and the podcast, so I try to get a podcast in there. So I think the to-do list usually will come after skating and then in chill. So my patterns that I try to keep are morning meditation for an hour with my goals and things like that. And I'm working with somebody that I'm going to podcast. You know him, Julian. You met him. He's an eccentric guy, and he's like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting because he's usually, when I see him, it's in like format. You know, he's in his business mode, and it was fun to see him cut loose. I was like, oh, you're like a little bit of a wild man. Like, I love it. It was like, holy smokes, right? But usually every time it's like breath and like it's super intense, and the words he uses and things like that, and the way that he processes right and left brain, I'm like, dude, you're like a level up. Like, I just am smart enough to recognize that this is legit. This is a legit process.
Yeah.
So I'm going through that with like morning affirmation and then meditation where I receive, and then I project, right? I visualize the life I'm creating, skateboard or gym, crap I got to do for the day. And a lot of it's like traveling and keeping myself open. I want to be of highest service. So I believe that we can do anything we set our minds to, and I think that we should give as much to the universe as possible. So what I focus on is, at the moment, and it's always changing, and I'm always looking for clarity and growth. And at the moment, it is, I want to be around the most loving, inspirational, conscious people of service to humanity. I want my unique skills to be utilized and feel in complete alignment with source, spirit, God, nature. And I want to live a life of joy, peace, prosperity, and that's it. So I kind of see myself doing those things, and, you know, the universe kind of fills in the blanks. I'm just saying, I'm here. I've shown up. I'm of service. You know what my best skills are. I know what I'm most passionate about. I'm going to develop those things, which is, you know, I like reading books. I like self-development. I like having conversations with amazing people like you. So the podcast comes in, you know, people start to reach out. I get asked to speak in Las Vegas. You know, I'm speaking at Burning Man, which I'm super stoked on. And so these things kind of pop in, where before, you know, when I was athletic, well, I'm still athletic, but, you know, I'm not going to sit in meditation and do tons of meditation on learning new skateboard tricks. Although I know how powerful that is and how good a skater I could get and how faster, I could become a great skater. I care more about being of service than I do to be a great skateboarder or a great snowboarder. I'll allow myself to be as good as I'm going to be, with no attachment. And when I'm skating, I use visualization. If there's a trick I really want, I'll go home and I'll visualize that sucker until I get it. Like, yeah, that pissed me off. But skateboarding is the ultimate slow process, And I called it because I hadn't skated forever. Last summer, I started skating a little bit consistently, and I was like, it's going to take me three summers at least. It won't be this summer. It will not be next summer, and I'm starting to put stuff together. It's going to be the end of the summer after that. I'll be able to kind of skate where it's like at a reasonable level where people are like, yeah, that's half decent right now. My girl, yeah, it's good. It's like this is not good. You know what I mean? Like this is like very basic stuff, but I'm working and I really enjoy it, and it keeps me fit. And I just have fun, and I'm fully present, and it allows for me to expand and enjoy. And I wanted to touch on the point that you made that was so important about knowing that you know nothing. And I think it goes to, there's a big difference in consciousness and communicating with someone with that awareness, but it's an acceptance that you know nothing. I accept that I know nothing, and I'm just going to take the information that you give me. I might say something on a podcast today that like you present me new information. I'm totally,
yep.
I'm just going to
with you
on my nugget and be like, that doesn't feel right, but can you continue to present me with your idea? Because I know and I accept that I know nothing, because through meditation and plant medicine and random experiences, I have been to these places where I've been pulled out and like, holy sweet mother baloney, no idea what's going on. Okay, cool. Come back to being a human. I'm going to be loving. And I'm going to be, as a service as I can, because we are all one family. We are one species. We are one planet. We are one Mother Earth. We are all those things. And there's nothing more than important than that. Definitely, it's not about me getting a mansion or giving a darn. We can all have abundance, and I accept that, and I'm moving into accepting that. I can have abundance, I can have affluence, I can be of service, but it's not about that. It's service number one, and as I just keep being of service, you will be rewarded in some manner. As a result, as a byproduct, it's another universal law, right? The law of service, the law of cause and effect. Be of service to enough people, and you get paid. We can all live abundant and free lifestyles. So we just get really focused on what it is we want. And the way that when I talked in Vegas, I talked about, with Zen athlete, it's using your sport to ascend your consciousness. You can use that for business. Give yourself a worthy goal that you would work towards, right? Whether it's your movement practice or self-development or serving your community. And that's the worthy goal you're going towards. And that's the thing that you want to show up for. That's the thing that's going to give you catalyst to ascend your consciousness, to be a better person, to want to be better, to do the work that is necessary to be the example, and to spread that service as far and as wide as you can. So that's
Amen. Amen. Fuck yeah.
That's my long-winded answer, man.
Fuck yeah. That was great.
Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on. I was taking notes during this, and you dropped so many wisdom bombs and truths, and I appreciate, the direction that you're going and all the work that you've done and everything that you are. So I'm excited to see where you float down the river and how things pan out, and staying in touch. And we'll definitely have to get you back on the show. And where can people find more about you if you're going to do some coaching, or you're going to, let people want to get in touch?
Yeah. Best place, andrewparr.com.
Easy.
I like to keep it simple. I'm trying to simplify all these things. Like if you can message me through that. I'll answer.
So is it a double R or single R?
Yeah. So it's ANDREWPARR.com. 2 R's.
Awesome.
Have my podcast there. Just random insights or practices or whatever. So that's the best place to get me.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you. And thank you all for watching. Hope this was useful and helpful. Sending a lot of love your way. Until next week. Peace.